Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, coal seam gas has been a contentious issue in the Northern Rivers for the last 4 or 5 years. It at times has been very polarising and at times very unifying. In late 2012, I started to get inundated with YouTube clips and articles about the dangers of CSG. I did not believe I could make up my mind without viewing the industry firsthand. The industry in my region was very much in its infancy, so I drove up to the Tara and Chinchilla region in southern Queensland. I spoke to many people that day and came away with a very firm opinion, and I'll quote from a statement I put out at the time. Last week I toured the gas fields in Tara and Hogan, and I've seen firsthand the effects of CSG mining on the environment and the community. I went to the CSG fields in Queensland with reservations about the industry and returned with grave concerns. The infrastructure is incredibly invasive and properties are devalued when CSG is next door. Given farms are much smaller in our region, the impact would be even greater. After I'd researched, listened to both sides and seen CSG production firsthand, I asked myself if I would like a well on or near my property. The answer is no. I run a cattle property in the area and I would not want CSG on or near my farm. I sympathise greatly with those who are fighting on this principle and cannot expect others to accept CSG mining into their neighbourhood if I would not accept it into mine. I wore a lot of flack over that statement, Madam Deputy Speaker, when I first made it. I wore a lot of flack from people who are now my federal parliamentary colleagues and indeed some state parliamentary colleagues and some in my community. I also received great words of support from people who are now my colleagues in the federal parliament and indeed members of my community. Since that time, I have lobbied colleagues. I went to Bentley, which was a protest site of a potential drill mining site in our region. I've met with ministers and indeed had meetings with prime ministers about this issue. I've amended in this place my own government's legislation in regarding to the water trigger legislation. I moved 2 amendments to my own government's legislation. We'll firstly make it the first amendment, making it compulsory for state governments to consider the Independent Expert Scientific Committee on coal seam gas, and also the second amendment ensured the federal government can request advice from the IESC and the federal minister retains the right to call in projects. This week, my state Nationals colleagues announced the buyback of PEL 445. This is very significant. We still need to do 2 or 3 more, but I acknowledge my state colleagues, Chris Galaptis, Jeff Provis and Thomas George, and indeed the state government, who've worked tirelessly at reducing the footprint of this industry in our region. I also lastly want, Madam Deputy Speaker, to thank my community. They highlighted this issue to me, they spoke to me, they indeed educated me on it. This has shown me that democracy works. I've been pleased to be able to play my part as a community representative, and I look to more good news on this industry in my region soon. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thanks very much, Mr.